Day 2 is upon us as JD Vance takes the stage. Some important little clips we got from the conference we're going to share on the show today. Also, we're going to talk a lot of altcoins, big Polygon news. We got some big Avalanche news. You know, they're keep making partnerships, not just with enterprises, but with local and state, state and local authorities and businesses. And who are they partnered with next? And what does that mean for the AVAX network? We're going to talk about Polygon, a potential catalyst for a resurgence of that entire network. Is that enough to bring Polygon back from the dead? We have that and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go.
It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency content. We take old, boring, stale information, repackage it up in a fun Sin City Bitcoin convention kind of way. What a day.
Rob, did you say shout out? It's your boy, Big Rob? Big Rob. For context, this picture, he was not Big Rob. He was just Rob. Shout out to our friends that are visiting us here in studio. Also to some of the community members that stopped by. We love it, guys. Thank you so much.
Big Rob. Thank you.
Yeah. Not today, you weren't.
I was leaning against the wall, so
here come the excuses. Here come the excuses.
I was leaning against the wall, so that's why I was.
Okay, that's why you looked at
yeah,
5 inches.
See the leg bent? See the leg bent?
Oh.
Go down. The leg's bent.
Oh, got it. But the other one's straight, so makes sense.
It looks like it has a knee injury.
Yeah. Or his ACL. That's crazy, man. Anyways, we start the show off on fire, baby. Today is a big, big day. Why? JD Vance, the first ever. Take a look at this. In the history of Bitcoin conferences, a sitting vice president for the first time ever will give a keynote speech at the Bitcoin conference. Well, the speech already happened. Then the conference is right now. Let's take a peek at some clips that we feel like are important for you to see, just in case you didn't catch it live. So here is JD talking about Gary Gensler and company.
Maybe the most important thing that we did for this community, we reject regulators and we fired Gary Gensler, and we're going to fire everybody like him.
Okay, who did this clip, by the way? Cointelegraph. Why did you leave 8 seconds of dead space after he finished his statement? Anyways, they said they fired Gary Gensler. We know he kind of stepped down. They said they're going to fire people like him. I mean, who's left like him, right? The only one was Caroline Crenshaw, but she's gone. Either way, obviously, the regulatory landscape has changed. And then this is JD. What was this one? This one's talking about how many Americans hold Bitcoin now and how many he thinks are going to hold Bitcoin in the very near future. Take a listen to this.
50 million Americans own Bitcoin, and I believe that's going to be 100 million before too long.
The users are going to double. Not too long.
2x, baby.
Rob, do you side with the vice president here? Why is that funny? That's a serious question.
Do I side with the vice
you
president?
agree?
With that, U.S. users are going to double? I mean, don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, okay, but here's the thing. Like, we talk about why do people buy Bitcoin? Japanese market tanks, Bitcoin goes up. A bank goes down in the U.S., Bitcoin goes up. The debanked hold, Bitcoin puts the power back into people's hands. I feel like a lot of Americans, they're kind of, how do I word this properly without offending people? We're very spoiled and we get a lot of things that a lot of people don't get in other worlds, right? And so to us, freedom to transact might not be that big of a deal versus somewhere, in Asia or the Middle East. Debanking, it really doesn't exist in the U.S. Sure, it does in small pockets, but not like some other continents. Let's just take Africa, for example, right? And so what do you think, Rob, would be the catalyst for users to double? Specifically, I'm talking about the United States. What's kind of your thesis on that? Because I
would say this real quick. I think it's a broken metric. And I think that if you...
What's a broken metric?
50 million users own BTC. And I'm not saying that that is factually incorrect. I just think that so many people have dust or small amount or something that's insignificant, or at one point bought and then ended up selling it, or just bought 0.01. I mean, if we did a poll and said how many people here use MySpace, and I'm sure the number's in the millions, right? 50 million, 100 million, probably MySpace accounts here in the U.S. Right. But how many of them are active? How many people use them? How many people have a Venmo account?
Real quick, MySpace, you were able to rank your friends.
Yeah.
Where would I have ranked? Top 5?
You're not on my friends list on MySpace.
No friend list. There is also the
I was going to
unfriend.
say you'd make my top 3, but
Top.
But it's the same if you look at Venmo. If Venmo said, hey, look how many American users have accounts with Venmo. Okay, sure, but how many people are using Venmo? Was popular 6 years ago.
Maybe they just created one because they needed a one-time transfer of money. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And so, to
it's
me,
a metric nonetheless, though.
No, but here's why I say that is because there's 300 million people is the U.S. population, 330 million.
Yeah.
And so, if you're gonna sit here and tell me that, one 1/6 of the population. So 1 out of every 6 people is out here is a Bitcoiner. Every time I'm in a group of people that is not in the crypto community, I'll be lucky if I can find 1 out of 20 that believes in Bitcoin. Now, 1 out of 6 will say, I bought Shiba Inu back in the day. I bought this back in the day. So I think that there is a lot of people that have had exposure at one point in time in crypto, but they're not crypto people. So anyways, what do we got to do? To double it? Well, you need more people just to hold on to dust. Yeah, I need more people to do one-time transactions. You need more people. So that number is crap to me. But at the end of the day, what we are doing is we are having more real use case and utility, because the transactions that we've had, the 50 million people, they've done it before, they bought before, but why were they buying? It was kind of gimmicky. We need people to buy because it's tried true, store of value, hedge against inflation,
Star system.
Yeah, whatever you want to use. But it's coming around, and it's going to have real use case versus before it was just speculative. I want to buy it because someone told me about it, and I'm going to be rich if I put $100 into it. And that's what a lot of the users are.
Those are the good days, huh?
Yeah. I mean, people, do you hear that too much anymore? Hey, if I put $100 into it, will I turn it into $1 million or whatever it is?
With Bitcoin, no. But I do get, hey, what can I put a little bit of money to get a lot of bit of money? Say,
I'm just like, that's not how the world works.
Well, you can go rob a bank, you can deal drugs. Don't recommend it, but hey, I think that's the problem we need to get out of, right? I think we've been spoiled with these massive gains, but it's not the norm. Let's face it, guys. A 500x is not the norm. A 200x is not the norm. It's great when it happens, but it's not the norm. If you just shift your mentality to go from, I want to 50x my money in a week versus, hey, I'm willing to stick 10 grand in my IRA, right? If I'm contributing $100,000 into an IRA, I'm down to put 10K into crypto and let it sit there for the next 5 to 10 years. And if more people did that, everyone would be happy. People will make money. Sure, you'll get into some rug pulls. Sure, you'll run into some issues. But at the end of the day, we just got to change our mentality, change our mindset. If you do get a 50x in a month, great. Take profits. Awesome. But if your only thing is chasing those 50x's, you might as well just come to Vegas, clear out your bank account, and go sit on a slot machine. Right? It's the same odds, maybe even a little better. And so that would be my biggest thing to people is change your mentality, invest in projects that are actually solving a problem, that have the infrastructure in place now, that have a proof of concept that they've taken to market and they can prove works. Put your money in that and leave it, right? Be patient, and in time you will make money, right? Maybe the 50x comes in a short period of time. Maybe it comes in 5 years, 6 years, whatever. Either way, it's going to be good. Let's take a peek at Bitcoin, actually. So this is the Bitcoin chart. I was looking at this. We talked about, Rob and I talked about yesterday. It was, hey, we're going to see 115K Bitcoin. And although I agreed with Robin, my big thing was, look, I agree with Rob. I think 115. But typically, it's buy the rumor, sell the news, right? People come in here, they get really excited. You see a big run up in price. And even if we go to the daily chart, right? You see a big run up in price as the conference starts, right? People are pouring in. And then during the conference, no matter how bullish the news is, no matter who the speaker is, and it looks like this year is no different. The price starts to go down. But again, change your mentality. Think long term versus short term. Then you'll come out ahead. But this is BTC on the daily. Now we talked about trading this range, right? We talked about very simple. You want to make money. Trade this range right here, my friends. And I'll even bring this down. We'll call it 110. We'll take the wicks, okay? 107.1 to 110.7, right? Every time, set a limit order to long at 107.5 and sell a TP or take profit at 110.766. I'd be careful putting in limit short orders because you never know. We're at a point in the cycle where at any point in time, these wicks could end up expanding. We can see momentum to the upside, and we clear that 111 and 112, brand new all-time highs at 115, 120, 125. But I'd feel very confident just putting in limit orders at 107.5. And then you see as price gets up there to that 110 region, take your profit and then analyze. Is this worth a short back down to, again, 107.5? And if it is, great. If it's not, then wait and see what price does. But it's fairly simple. But Rob, what are your thoughts on kind of the price action we've seen from BTC? We expected, I think we both expected, we were talking about 115K, but it looks like the old, hey, buy the rumor up into the conference, sell the news.
Yeah, we're in the conference lulls. And so you've seen pullbacks historically. You know, Bitcoin's held pretty strong. You look here on the 1 week, you know, you go back, I mean, we were at 109. So there isn't essentially a pullback at all. This is, just more of a, still in the same channel as we were going into the conference. So Bitcoin's holding steady. Like to see it break out. I don't know if there's any speakers left, that could have more clout or more pull than JD Vance. Yeah. So I don't know if there's going to be any large announcement that's going to move Bitcoin, in a degree that is maybe $10,000 or $8,000 to get us up to that 115, break new all-time highs. So I would just kind of stick to the technicals and the fundamentals here, technical analysis on what can push us to the next level. I don't think any news is going to come out of the BTC conference. It's going to rock the markets. I don't know. Am I missing anybody? Is there any? Do you think there might be any?
Jack
news?
Mahler's no.
Jack Mahler's probably doesn't have anything that's going to shake the markets to the point to where Bitcoin takes off. But I don't know. I think just regular price action. I wouldn't be surprised to see us back over 110 by the end of the week, barring any new tariff news. I mean, you never know. That's always there.
Well, with someone like Trump, maybe
yeah,
it's not tariff.
It was there.
Maybe he's sitting there eating a 10-piece, and he's like, I got a great idea, and let me tweet about it, and then, oh, shit. It's not very good. I did have a couple more JD Vance videos. Now, we have a special guest in the studio. I'm excited to bring him on. But let's listen to JD Vance here first. So this is JD talking about Bitcoin being a hedge against inflation. The question I asked you, and you went off on a complete tangent for my question, which no shocker is what you usually do.
That's right.
I said, what would be the catalyst for those users to double, right? And so here is, I guess, one reason you can throw in that jar. This is JD Vance again this morning at the Bitcoin conference.
Crypto is a hedge against bad policymaking from Washington, no matter what party is in control. It's a hedge against skyrocketing inflation, which has eroded the real savings rate of Americans over the last 4 years. And as you all know well, it's a hedge against a private sector that's increasingly willing to discriminate against consumers on the basis of their basic beliefs, including their politics. That includes, of course, debanking users for Second Amendment advocacy or for ties to the first Trump administration. In Canada, the government did the same to kill those big truck driver protests in 2022. Less than a week later, they succeeded. The protests were over. But maybe most importantly, I see crypto as a hedge against one of the most dangerous trends in the digital era in both the public and private sectors. And that's of elites who, rather than innovate themselves, prefer to simply take over and co-opt cutting-edge technologies to assert their control over other people. And I know we believe this in this room. That's not Bitcoin. It'll never be Bitcoin, and you guys are going to make sure that happens.
Okay. So hedge against inflation, the stuff we all talk about, right? But is that going to be enough for Americans?
U.S. has got to buy, man. Let's just stop sugarcoating it. We over here talking about wouldn't it be great, for Bitcoin and America, and don't banks providing Bitcoin, and then you got what are all the other narratives you keep hearing, and then you got
What do you mean?
hedge against inflation. But
Yeah. These are all good narratives.
I'm not saying they're not. We've been beating it to death,
what you're
man.
saying.
And what I'm waiting for, I'm waiting for that
The
big
Vice
buy.
President
I'm waiting
of the-
for them to pull the trigger, man.
The
to buy
Vice
some
President
Bitcoin,
of the
bro.
United States says it. It's not just any
I'm
random
selfish.
person.
We created the strategic Bitcoin reserve, right?
Yeah, we're strategically not buying Bitcoin.
And it instructs the branches of government to buy Bitcoin if they can do it in a way that does not incur any tax, or if it's not contributing to the debt. And so I just say, hey,
Listen, man.
it's there, man. Buy some Bitcoin,
I'm
dude.
sick and tired. I'm over here saying this is important because the vice president's saying, yeah, Robin doesn't care. We need a tiebreaker.
You know what? I was just hoping
JD
what? Vance was going to come out and
You're
say.
done.
And
You're
I was
done.
hoping
Cutting you
JD Vance was going to come out and say,
Yeah, you were
hey,
hoping.
the U.S. is buying Bitcoin. We bought 50,000 Bitcoin. We bought 100,000. I was waiting for something,
Okay.
man.
Okay, so
Give me a little nugget of courage.
you feel underwhelmed as anyways. We have CJ from People's Reserve joining us. CJ, I'm going to introduce you and we'll get into People's Reserve in a second, but this is very important. Very rarely do we have a tiebreaker person who can break a tie that's not a leaning one way, Rocco towards Robin. I think it's a big deal. The Vice President of the United States, even though this is a talking point that we talk about all the time,
I never said
it's
it was
still
a big
important. You're over here brushing it off, saying it's not a big deal. CJ, we need you to break the tie.
Well, I'm happy to jump in here because I think this is a matter of national economic security. This is not a joking matter. We borrow dollars and we spend them into the economy, and we think that that growth is going to offset our liabilities. That's impossible.
Yeah.
Because when we invest the dollar into the economy, when it flows through the taxing system, we're getting anywhere from 30 to 50 cents on a return on that dollar. So we can't even pay back the principal, much less the interest. We're borrowing a dollar, we owe about $1.04 on that. Yeah. So this is why we have a deficit. This is why we have to continue to inflate to pay our bills. We need to take that dollar and invest it in something that can allow the asset side of the United States balance sheet to outgrow the liability side. And that asset is Bitcoin. You cannot put it into our natural reserves. It's going to take hundreds of billions of dollars investment and decades to pull those out and get them into the marketplace. Yeah. You can't put it into real estate because you're going to have more an affordability problem. What can we do with that dollar that we're borrowing? Yes, it should go into infrastructure, but it needs to go into Bitcoin, because when you put it into Bitcoin, Bitcoin is an engineered money. It was strategically designed to appreciate in value over time through its code and protocol. So what happens is it's the only asset in the world that's going to deliver more than $1 worth of return. And when you put it on the asset side of the balance sheet, that asset side of your balance sheet can outgrow. The pace of that growth will start to outgrow the pace of your liabilities. And that's what's going to bring down debt to GDP ratio. That's what's going to strengthen the country. It's a national economic security concern.
I like that. So I think that means CJ siding with me. It was a big deal.
He basically just said that
he
you need to buy some Bitcoin and put it on the asset balance sheet. There.
Now for a proper intro, CJ. Welcome to the show. Sorry I had to bring you in that way, but it was very important. So I'm telling you, man, very rarely. CJ's from People's Reserve. They deal with real estate and RWA, which, by the way, we have a story on that. But CJ, can you take maybe a couple minutes and tell people your story of crypto, how you got in? Sounds like you're a pretty big Bitcoin guy.
Yeah, I definitely.
And how'd you get involved in People's Reserve?
Yeah, absolutely. I self-identify as a Bitcoin maxi, but I think you have to be careful how you define Bitcoin maxi. Bitcoin is money, and nothing can compete with it as money. And the other crypto, it exists for a reason, not to compete with Bitcoin, but to complement it, to evolve it from digital gold to pristine collateral. And that's what I've learned over my last 12 years in this marketplace, that it's not just the digital gold. It is actually a pristine collateral, and we must start to fuse it and integrate it into debt products in order to move forward, or else we're going to be stuck in this stalemate that JD was talking about, where the monopoly powers that be maintain control, state interest rates, and basically extract value. And that's what pushed me to found People's Reserve, to build an ecosystem that delivers value back to responsible savers of Bitcoin.
Awesome. So you've been 12 years, you said?
Yeah.
What's your wildest crypto story?
Oh my
12 years, you probably have a few. Curious.
Oh, I have to be careful what I say here.
There was that party with that one was a
Being a
doozy.
Justin's son, that
My,
dude's got an entourage
My
of
keys,
like
they
20
sank with the
people.
boat. Let's just put it that way. No, I think probably one of my wildest stories, Bitcoin related, is that I bought my first single family home, starter home, for 100 Bitcoin. So I can tell you today, my home is nowhere near worth even just $1 million. And that Bitcoin is worth over $10 million.
Wow.
So learning that hard lesson was something where I realized, wow, you know what? You do not want to be spending your Bitcoin, especially right now with the strategic Bitcoin reserves, the Bitcoin treasury companies. We are seeing the monetization of the asset class. So this magic internet money, Ponzi, this is ludicrous.
Yeah.
When I first started, could have been true, but we're so far beyond that now. This asset class has been validated. And with the advent of People's Reserve and the type of products we're building with our Bitcoin-powered finance products, it's the financialization of the asset class. Much like what happened to real estate in 71 when they removed gold from the dollar, there was a financialization process where you had all these financial tools to leverage your real estate. And that's what drove that monetary premium into the asset class. We are now going to see the same thing happen with Bitcoin.
So it's interesting, the People's Reserve and what that kind of scenario you brought up. So is it more for retail institutions or both?
We have a product for everybody.
Okay. So give me like a practical example, like the people watching right now, where they can relate to understand exactly the benefit of what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So I think our Bitcoin powered mortgage product is a really good example. A lot of people have a mortgage and they're trying to figure out a way, especially right now with rates being kept high, the market is frozen. And it's frozen because nobody can refinance, nobody can upgrade. And they're basically begging for lower interest rates to make it more affordable. So there's an affordability crisis. And for responsible savers of Bitcoin, I want you to learn from my mistakes. Don't spend your Bitcoin to buy a home because the home is not going to appreciate anywhere near the rate and pace that Bitcoin is going to appreciate. So what we want to do is we want to unlock that purchasing power for you. When you hold Bitcoin on your balance sheet, it's kind of like trapped equity right now. There's no way to really benefit from it and increase your quality of life and standard of living. But with our product, let's say you want to buy a $500,000 home. To initiate the loan, you have to put down 1-to-1. So you'd have to put down $500,000 of Bitcoin. This means there's no credit checks, no debt to income ratios, no employment requirements. Money talks in the new world, and Bitcoin is money. So when you put it down, you can get your financing. What the risk is in the market right now, and what People's Reserve does differently than every other lender in the space, is we've taken steps to mitigate liquidation risk. Because if you've borrowed against your Bitcoin before, you don't sleep that easy at night with the volatility in this.
Especially knowing some of these platforms and market makers that manipulate the price, and you see these weird wicks and people get liquidated. I think that's a lot of people on edge. So I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, we believe wholeheartedly that as we move into the financialization of this asset class, liquidation is actually the biggest risk for Bitcoiners. Because these big bankers and market makers, they want to buy your coins when you're forced to sell them.
Amen.
So we've taken the proper steps to mitigate that price volatility risk. And how we've done that is we've integrated adjustable interest rates. So if you post 1-to-1, 500,000 Bitcoin, 500,000 loan, let's say the price of Bitcoin goes down a little bit. What happens is your interest rate adjusts up. Because as you guys well know, interest rates are the price of money. And the price discovery of cost of capital is not just supply and demand, but risk. That's why you have a credit score.
Right, yeah.
Higher credit score, lower rate. Lower credit score, higher rate. So when the value of your Bitcoin goes down, there's a little bit more risk for us as the lender. Your interest rate has to adjust upwards a little bit to make up for that risk, but vice versa. So when you have an asset like Bitcoin with a 10-year CAGR of over 80%, as the value of your collateral goes up over time, your interest rate goes down. So what does that mean for the borrower? Imagine over the longer periods of time, your mortgage payments are actually decreasing. That means the free cash flow you have from trading your time and energy for your job, now you can use that to increase your quality of life and standard of living. You have more money that you can spend on living life to the fullest extent while your Bitcoin works for you in the background.
This is very intriguing to me, CJ, because now with the housing market, right, Rob? We talk about this all the time. Like, we kind of got lucky. You bought your house in 2010.
Yeah.
I bought my house right before the rates skyrocketed. I got locked in like a 3.6.
But to CJ's point is that I'm terrified to sell my house because I bought in 2010 and my sub $200,000 mortgage, which my house now is.
Stop gloating, okay? We know. Jesus.
And this product goes both ways. So for someone like you who locked in a good rate and has been paying off their mortgage, you obviously have a lot of equity in your home. Well, we want to enable you to transform your equity from real estate equity to Bitcoin equity. Why would you hold real estate equity with a 2 to 8%, depending on your zip code CAGR, when you can have it in Bitcoin, being 80% CAGR? You're going to outpace all of your neighbors when you transform home equity to Bitcoin equity. So it goes both ways, and that's what I was saying. We have a product for everybody.
I think the biggest fear, CJ, that and when I interview people, I always like to put myself in the position of the people watching. And the first question that came to mind is, well, is there a limit to the upside of how high the interest rate can go? Like, I don't want to go in with a, let's say, $2,000 monthly rate. Bitcoin goes through a bear market, it drops 50%, and now I went from paying $2,000 a month to like $3,500 a month. That could really cripple someone's finances. So what are like the, I guess, guardrails you guys have in place for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a phenomenal question. And that should be people's concern when you're with an adjustable rate. The good news is that we're a US-based company. We're regulated here in the United States, which means all usury laws apply to us in every state that we offer our products and services. So you're going to have the limit to the upside protected by the letter of the law on usury. But at People's Reserve, we specifically believe with Bitcoin as the most pristine form of collateral, it doesn't make sense that you can go to your banker and say, I promise to continue working hard. I promise to pay you. And then you get a 7% rate. And then on the upside, you come and you say, I want to borrow $500,000. Here's $500,000 of Bitcoin. That's not a promise.
Right.
That's a secured loan by a commodity that has 24/7, 365 liquidity. That is a lower risk proposition for the lender. So it's our goal at People's Reserve to actually offer lower interest rates than you would get in the traditional marketplace. The guardrails on the upside of that are roughly, we haven't really shared these details, so your viewers are kind of getting an insight.
Yeah, give us the alpha.
Basically, for about every 10% move, it's about 25 basis points. So if Bitcoin has a red day, you could go from if prime rate right now is 7.5, let's say you're starting there, you can be up to 7.75. But vice versa, you can also be down to 7.25. Right. And over the long term, we know Bitcoin is going to put in that price performance. Could it go down 50% in 5 days? Absolutely. Is it going down 50% in 5 years? Hell no.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, that was just a question I had. Okay, cool. I'm sure we'll chat more. Like I said, we do have an RWA article here regarding Avalanche, and we'd love to get CJ's take. I do want to share this one more video from JD, because obviously today's the headliner, big day. And then we'll get into some of the market stuff. So this is JD Vance talking about China and what we should do.
Say it like that.
What do you mean? I'm inspired.
Okay.
President Donald J. Trump, China. Remember when they asked him, why do you call it China virus? Because it came from China. It came from China. Anyways, all right, JD Vance, China.
But I actually think that where Bitcoin is going is as a strategically important asset for the United States over the next decade. It's one of the reasons why President Trump, with the help of our great AI guy, David Sachs, it's one of the reasons why we started the Bitcoin Reserve, because we want to start to put in motion the strategic importance of Bitcoin for the United States government. We know that the PRC doesn't like Bitcoin. The People's Republic of China doesn't like Bitcoin. Well, we should be asking ourselves, why is that? Why is our biggest adversary such an opponent of Bitcoin? And if the communist Republic of China is leaning away from Bitcoin, then maybe the United States ought to be leaning into Bitcoin. And that's one of the things that we're going to be doing.
All about monetary control, right?
I mean, CJ said it's a.
Yeah.
You said it's your exact word. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's like, hey, this is something that is a threat.
I got a good rip on this one, actually.
Yeah, tell me.
Because this is about humans being made in the image of the creator. We're creators. What we do is we take the natural and we transform it into the engineered. We had the fire for light. We engineered it into the light bulb. We had the horse to do the work. We engineered it into the engine with horsepower. We had the natural money of gold. We've now engineered it into digital gold. And that ability to engineer is what brings Bitcoin above gold. And what he's saying about China is so important because I'm not sure if your viewers know this or not, but China, for the first time in their history, is now establishing a gold exchange in Hong Kong. And they will allow the Saudis who are selling them oil to take the renminbi and turn it into gold. They are basically enabling oil for gold swaps. We are going into a world where it's going to be a gold-backed renminbi versus a U.S.-backed what? Promise?
Right.
Or no, a U.S. hybrid-backed Bitcoin. That's what we need to do. If we do not adopt Bitcoin, we're going to have paper promises. We're going to have debt notes going up against a currency that's backed by billions of dollars of oil that can be redeemed for gold. This is an unwinnable proposition. We must take action immediately if we want to have a chance to maintain financial control.
You know, and I think CJ, I think there's a bunch of things that can do that because obviously the U.S. doesn't want to lose the reserve currency status, right? It would be bad. But I was watching, I think it was Mark Moss. He was giving a presentation and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, this fiat sandbox that we've been, playing in and trying to work through, it's kind of been an experiment for really only 50 years out of the 5,000 years of humanity and currency. Out of those years, it's always been backed by something, gold or silver, whatever. And it's only been 50 years that it's been backed by literally nothing but the promise that, hey, we'll pay you back, I promise.
And as the world has been evolving through technology, becoming more efficient, I mean, you just look at software and AI, and one thing that's just kind of stagnant and has yet to evolve at the same pace of technology globally is the monetary system, the banking system, and particularly the U.S. with its, wire transfers, processing payments from Visa. And so it's just clunky and outdated. And I think that people are screaming for a resolution. And we've been asking for this since the dawn of time, which we've been trying to find that perfect money. And we've failed time and time again. We've had letdown. We've tried, backing fiat by gold, which does work in a perfect scenario.
No, not even the perfect scenario.
But then governments will break the.
It was working fine until they had to, declare war and they needed to raise money. And they're like, you know what? You can't do your gold. And also we're raising money. We promised to pay you back. That was the UK.
And there was never enough gold. There was never enough gold to back it. And then foreign.
They call it circulating credit. So you have commodity credit versus circulating credit, two different credit markets. In a commodity credit, you're backed by equity. You're backed by real world assets. So when the person defaults, you actually fold into a liquid asset. In a circulating credit market, you fold into a promise. You fold into nothing.
A black hole.
And into a black hole. And that's the real problem here. We need to get back to things that make sense. This was an experiment. It's a failed experiment. People who think that we can raise interest rates or lower interest rates to fix this don't really understand the problem. If they raise interest rates, our interest expense is going to go up. That's going to increase inflation.
Yep.
If they lower interest rates, the $7.5 trillion that was raised through the sell-off of 2022 when they started the hiking campaign, where do you think that money's going to go?
Yeah.
Is it going to stay with the government at 0 to 0.25%? No, it's going to go rushing back into real-world assets. And when it does, inflation will light a fire. There is no way to go. You can't raise or lower to fix this. You need something from outside the system to be plugged into it to have a chance.
We'll see if they're willing to do that because I think we all know, that makes sense. It's just, are they willing to take those steps? I think there's a better chance with the current administration than the last. Kind of wrap this thing up with JD, though. He said, we were wondering yesterday, Rob, we're saying, hey, wonder if he still has Bitcoin. He's confirmed, I still own a fair amount of Bitcoin today. And then I know we brought up gold. This is BlackRock's managing director at the conference talking about Bitcoin having much higher upside than gold. Listen to this.
Personally, I don't think one needs to look at the competition as zero sum, right? They are in many ways sort of different angles on a similar theme, a similar investment thesis and worldview, right? They both are global, scarce, decentralized, fixed supply assets, right? They're both detached from those traditional country and systemic risks, and that's why investors are drawn to them. And gold today is much less volatile and has a much longer history. But Bitcoin is digitally native in an increasingly digital world, is efficient to store, can be transferred anywhere in the world in near real time at near zero cost. So it has some significant advantages too. I think there's no question Bitcoin has much higher upside than gold and lower downside, right? And so there's different flavors of it that investors have, and many investors are going to own both. We see lots of investors adding to both. We see some switching from, maybe they were 100-0 gold Bitcoin and they went to 80-20 or they went to 50-50. We see a lot of that, but certainly as a category, as a sort of diversifier and hedge, Bitcoin and gold is growing.
But it seems like
Personally, I don't think.
So he said Bitcoin has more upside than gold. So let's do some math here, okay? What is the market cap of gold?
it is currently sitting at $22 trillion.
$22 trillion. And where's Bitcoin sitting at? $2 trillion. So a 10x.
Yeah, and so
right?
here, which you have. We saw Bitcoin briefly flip Amazon. I think it was about a week ago when it set that the previous all-time high at a 111. Yeah, and so you see here, there's not much in front of Bitcoin when it comes to market cap and gold. You have just Microsoft, Nvidia, Apple, and Amazon, and then we got the gold standard, which is gold. And so I find it hard to make an argument that in the long-term window, you don't see Bitcoin surpass gold. Its performance for the ETFs have surpassed gold as far as its first
everything.
Yeah, its first couple years of trading, and we're expecting that to skyrocket. It's been surprising to me when the ETFs went live. I foolishly thought, I'm like, what? It's going to be American investors, it's going to be institutions. But then, we started seeing news story after news story, like sovereign wealth fund, foreign company, foreign nations,
pension fund, pension
things
fund.
outside of the U.S. borders were getting exposure to gold to Bitcoin. But why is that? And I think it's just because, hey, you don't need to worry about seed phrase or putting together a fortress to secure your Bitcoin. Just buy the ETF from a company, a country, or a central bank, foreign or abroad. It's just an easy way to go. And so I think that because of the simplicity of the ETF, and also just the fact that the U.S. is spearheading the crypto strategy, particularly the strategic reserve with Bitcoin, I would not be surprised to see the market cap flip on gold. I was thinking it might be like a 10-year venture. I mean, I don't know, man. It could be less than that.
So you're saying
right?
you think it takes 10 years for Bitcoin?
I initially thought that, but the ETF
seems a little too long for me.
The perfect metric to gauge this growth is hash rate, because out of everything he said, he never mentioned the difficulty adjustment.
Right.
So I implore your listeners to research the difficulty adjustment and understand that mechanism, because that's what makes it engineered. As hash rate grows and miners find blocks in a faster than a 10-minute pace, difficulty increases. Well, when difficulty increases, the cost to produce the Bitcoin to earn the block stability goes up, just like gold. Why did gold store value through time? Because as they diluted the dollar, the cost to rip it from the ground goes up. Well, when you're a business, you need to sell that gold for more than it costs to rip it out of the ground.
Yeah.
And that pushes the price up. And then the market gets to vote with their money. So if that cost goes too high and the value proposition of the network is rejected, people won't buy it at that price.
Goes down.
So difficulty is an amazing mechanism that drives value.
Isn't it really? Like when you think about it, right? It's so genius. And to think this happened, almost 20 years ago? Yeah, like 17 years ago.
And I did pull up a Bitcoin hash
rate,
rate difficulty.
Was that 800 something exahash?
Or that.
If that starts going down, that is how you would see the free market price signal would be saying, hey, the value proposition of a truth money in a world of lies is no longer valuable to me. But the fact is that the value proposition of a truth ledger in a world of lies is invaluable.
Yeah.
So hash rate will continue to go parabolic, difficulty will continue to go up, cost of earning the subsidy will continue to go up, and thus the cost or the price to access the value proposition of the network will continue to go up. It's an engineered design. It's not just random.
So the people who bought Bitcoin 2 years ago, 2 months ago, or two days ago, you guys are in a great position because I think everyone, including you watching, believe that Bitcoin will eventually surpass the market cap of gold. I don't think it's going to take 10 years. I think it'll maybe take 5 to 6 years, maybe half that time frame. But either way, we think it's going to happen. And as CJ so rightfully mentioned, the way it's engineered, if miners start pulling their ASICs out because it's just too costly, the difficulty goes down, which incentivizes them to come back. And so it's a perfect rebalancing. CJ, I think you hit on all really, really good points. I'm going to send it over to Rob. Rob, let's take a look at the altcoin markets. I know it's pretty, I don't want to say pretty red, but fairly red across the board on the alts, and then we'll get into some altcoin news.
All right. So we got Bitcoin, little bit of a rally here since JD Vance had taken the stage. We saw Bitcoin down to 107 and $300, and it's now a little closer to that 108 mark. So we're keeping an eye on that as the conference continues. We have a little bit more red in the markets than green, but here I'll just go over the big winners today on the 24 hours. You got Toncoin up 13%. Also, Uniswap is up 2%, up 10% on the week. So not too much double-digit numbers when it comes to the altcoin market, but we did have a pullback. Monero's down 12% today. We did see a spark of Monero a few days ago. It was up almost 20% on the week, and a little natural pullback here on this one. You go down the list, we're seeing a pullback in AI as well. It's just interesting because JD Vance came out at a Bitcoin and crypto conference and mentioned Bitcoin and AI, and yet AI cryptos have pulled back.
AI cryptos have been crushing it. They gotta pull back,
Yeah, no, I get it. But
a little breather, man.
I saw, when I saw JD Vance, he mentioned AI on his speech and Bitcoin several times. And he said you can't have the conversation of AI without crypto, particularly Bitcoin. To some regard, that was what he had said.
Look at Hyperliquid, up 25% over the last week.
Hyperliquid's crushing.
This is one of the most interesting narratives in the space, in my opinion.
Yeah, what do you think? Yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
The perpetual swap market is actually, in my opinion, why BlackRock is tokenizing treasuries. Because while they hold the cash equivalent, earning the yield from the government, they take that asset and they create a liability, a derivative liability in the stablecoin. Then they take the stablecoin and they provide delta neutral liquidity to a marketplace like Hyperliquid, and you earn additional yield on top of what you're earning on the cash equivalent. So the big boys, the market makers, those who usually write and sell call options and provide liquidity to the wider marketplace, they're starting to understand something. Free market interest rates are actually a greater incentive and more profitable than the stated fixed anchored interest rates in the traditional market. They want exposure to decentralized finance because that free market economy, that internet economy, the only economy in the world with true free market interest rates, it's more profitable than TradFi.
Yeah, Hyperliquid, to me also very interesting. When they went through the hack thing, right? That thing was at $13. And I was a little hesitant. I should have pulled the trigger, man. And those of you that did, congrats to you, because I think Hyperliquid is going to be.
Yeah, you've had a solid 2x out of
3x.
Hyperliquid. Just no, I'm saying in the last 30 days. So in the last month, last 30 days, we've seen it go from $17 to $34. So something that's scratching at the top 10. It's right outside of huge.
What number is it, by the way?
Number 12 on the market cap list.
Wow, really?
Yeah, man, it is sneaking up the charts. If you haven't paid attention or you hadn't
up, yeah, you're right.
Your market cap. Did
they just release a lot of tokens? Because I don't think this thing was near the top 10. No, they must have had a token release. Go ahead, I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that kind of rounds out the altcoins. You know, the big boys, the major alts that we're familiar with are pretty flat right now. Ethereum at down 1% on the day, but it's still up 6%. So on the 1 week, ETH outperforming Bitcoin. This is not something we've been regularly saying. So will the trend continue? We'll keep a close eye on it. Also XRP down 4%. We had an article we discussed yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? I'm not sure. But either way, earlier this week where we talked about the tokenization of real world assets, particularly in Dubai when it comes to real estate. I was curious to get your perspective on it, CJ, on, I know it's in your frame of reference when it comes to, perhaps mortgages or tokenization of property. But what's your kind of take when it comes to altcoins, real world assets, and particularly homes? Do you think that this is an emerging market, or do you think that this is something different? I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that's happening in the space right now. When I first started brainstorming People's Reserve and the future of RWAs being combined with Bitcoin and crypto, I ran into a brick wall when I came to tokenization of assets, because I asked myself, would I tokenize my home? Would I take my equity, tokenize it, and then provide liquidity on Uniswap or Hyperliquid? But what happens if something goes wrong? I've now just lost ownership of my home. Not sure the risk reward is really there. So at People's Reserve, we decided that it makes more sense to not add that risk to the real world asset, but at the same time, take the risk with the digital asset. Leverage the digital asset to accumulate the real world. Don't risk the real world asset to accumulate the digital world. And I think that's where we start. And that's not to say that that's not going to work out in the long run, but I think what we've seen from the marketplace is that the massive amount of value has been accrued in digital assets. Real world assets have kept up pace with inflation, but there hasn't really been a real source of purchasing power created there. The real trapped equity, the real trapped purchasing power is in digital assets, which continue to outperform every other asset in the world. And how do we unlock that purchasing power? With products like our Bitcoin-powered mortgage.
Yeah, I think, and to add that, to add to what you said, CJ, is not only that, but to protect that asset as well, right? And so, I'm going to share an article in a second, and I'm really curious to get your take, but I do want to share this because, well, it's in our title of the video, and GameStop, it's official. We were like, when are they going to buy it? They announced it, and nothing happened. Rob, do me a favor, pull up a GameStop chart, okay, on CNBC. They bought 4,710 Bitcoin, which, CJ, you good at on-the-fly math?
Not that good.
No, not that good. I used to be good, and I don't know. I got kids, and then they ate up all my brain cells, and no, I'm not good at math anymore.
It's 4.7 billion.
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, you add 4 zeros to it.
Thanks, Robin. Appreciate it. Didn't take you for the math.
6 0, whatever.
But what is their stock at? It looks like they're down.
So this is on the 1 day. They did open up at $35 and they're down to 32. But you look at the 1 week, it's not anything dramatic.
I believe it was up when the market opened.
Yeah,
right?
Now the market opened at 35. And so I guess the news did not rally the price, which is interesting because we've seen multiple companies.
Every company that announces, their stock goes up.
Yeah, essentially.
Or that's been the trend so far.
These Bitcoin treasury companies, this narrative is very interesting. And I've been a MicroStrategy share. My split adjusted price is $26.
Oh, wow.
So I've as soon as I heard what he was doing, I was interested and locked into it. And I think what's missing, though, are dividends. And that's not to say that MicroStrategy doesn't have a future. I haven't sold my shares, and I have no plan to sell my shares. Yeah. But with People's Reserve, we do have a plan to do a reverse merger with a SPAC and get access to U.S. capital markets. But when we access that capital, we want to stack some Bitcoin with it, but we also want to feed the People's Reserve ecosystem. And when we do that, when people use our products and services with that capital, it creates revenue. And that revenue flows back up to People's Reserve Inc., our umbrella corporation, and we will be able to distribute dividends. So I want to see Bitcoin treasury companies that create cash flow. I want a long-term play on a central bank of the internet economy that also creates cash flow for me, because my Bitcoin is my long-term hodl.
Right, yeah.
Someone's got to do this. Someone's got to meet in the middle. And I think if we can pull it off, we will be the first to actually give you a reason to say, hey, you know what? I have my long-term Bitcoin stack for the big, big, big upside. And I have my People's Reserve shares because I get my cash flow.
CJ, This all sounds really good, okay? And I keep seeing things and use your Bitcoin, do this, but I keep coming back to the same thing. The true Bitcoin maxis who are like, I'm custodying myself, I don't trust anyone, are they really going to give up the keys to their Bitcoin to earn dividends or to leverage it to borrow debt? Are they like, do you really see them doing that?
Well, the great news
They're
is
so against it.
yeah, and they should be. And that's the default mindset. You should be default against it. But what you need to realize is that everything that you do in the world is a contract. Whether it's a smart contract or a handshake, it is a written contract. So at People's Reserve, we give you the option for multi-sig custody so that you can understand, and we contractually obligate ourselves, no rehypothecation. So if we rehypothecate your Bitcoin, we're in breach of contract, you can sue us. So that contract holds us legally liable as a company.
By the way, CJ, let's cut you off. For those people that don't know what rehypothecation means, it means they can't take your Bitcoin and then lend it to someone else or put it in a market or do whatever.
Yeah, that's what led to the collapse of all the previous lending companies. They took a fiat mindset and they put fiat practices, fiat banking practices into an absolute digitally scarce asset that can't be printed. So when the rehypothecation fails, like with the banking crisis and bank term funding program, just print more money. But you can't print Bitcoin. You cannot do rehypothecation in a Bitcoin ecosystem.
There's no one's going to trust you.
But with multi-sig options, I do think Bitcoiners will take that because they understand the long-term value of Bitcoin. They understand that you don't sell your Bitcoin unless you absolutely have to. And right now, in some cases, you actually have to sell it if you want to buy that home. But with our tools, you won't need to sell it. And you will be able to get a multi-sig option to make sure that we're not rehypothecating, but also to make sure that you're not selling the asset. You have to meet in the middle and have a contractual agreement with the counterparty. And that's business. You can't do business without a contract. And I think they're going to be able to swallow that pill.
Yeah, and I'm sure I know the answer, but the question then becomes, well, how does People's Reserve make money? And the obvious to me would be the interest rate, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've told a lot of people about, and the other thing is when we write a mortgage, unlike banks who take that mortgage and earn their fees and then package it together as a mortgage-backed security and sell it as a cash flow product, we don't do that. We keep it on our book because it's a secured loan. And we believe the internet economy will have the only true free market, unanchored yield curve in the world. And that's what we need. We need a price of money that's discovered without a stated rate and without anchored rates. And that rate is going to be a little bit lower, but it's the true risk-free rate. It's no longer risk-free to lend to the person who has the printer because they're running it continuously. It's less risk to lend to the person with the Bitcoin and with the real estate.
This is so interesting to me. Okay, let me ask you a question. I got a friend, crappy credit. Okay, he's got like 200K equity in his house, but he can't get a HELOC. He can't refinance because the interest rate's gonna be a lot higher, and he can't get a HELOC because his credit's crapped out. Is that something that you guys would be able to, like, if he has Bitcoin, let's say, you can put it up as collateral and draw like a line of credit or even draw money out? Does that like a product that's available now?
We can do one better. We can help you even if you have no Bitcoin. We call it a home equity Bitcoin line of credit. And you can pull the equity from your home. The difference is you just don't get the money and spend it on what you want. It goes directly into Bitcoin and gets posted as collateral. So the Bitcoin that you buy with the loaned money is matched 1-to-1. And then over time, the CAGR of Bitcoin outgrows the debt. And that's real Bitcoin yield. That's what Bitcoin maxis are going to come to understand.
Interesting.
The definition of Bitcoin yield is the reduced burden of fiat-denominated debt against your Bitcoin.
So let me get this straight. So you would pull the equity out. You, in turn, would buy Bitcoin with, or your company would, with the equity draw or the value of the equity. And then in turn, as a business model is that you're going to make your profit off the interest rate, and then I'm just going to make my profit off the price accumulation of Bitcoin over the course of time.
Absolutely right. And another thing about People's Reserve is that, I mean, I don't say this enough. We're a one-stop shop, right? So if you're getting your money from the fiat system in through one of the popular exchanges, but you come and you have your mortgage with us, you think you're going to keep getting your money with that popular exchange? No, you're going to come do it with us. So we're going to take care of your most important assets in the world, which are life, Bitcoin, and real estate. You can come to one spot to manage them all.
This is very interesting to me. We're gonna have to talk after because I can keep going. But wow, okay, yeah, my wheels are turning. Okay, I do want to go over one article here with CJ. Well, because, he's an expert in this. But this news, New Jersey and Avalanche revolutionized real estate with a massive blockchain upgrade. New Jersey is moving forward the digitalization of its public infrastructure through a project that will migrate more than 370,000 property deeds onto the AVAX blockchain. This is a 5-year agreement, and it represents nearly $240 billion in real estate and becomes the largest real estate records tokenization initiative in the United States.
Just like we
Rob,
talked about,
go ahead.
Just like we talked about the inefficiencies of financial markets, the inefficiency of the home buying process, the entire mortgage closing process, the underwriting, the documents, the massive amount of documents that you have to have, and
Those limestone tunnels,
Yeah, dude, it is so archaic. And, not to mention everybody, or not everybody, but there's just so many different people with the hands in the pot that are benefiting or profiting off of your home purchase. I immediately thought of when I was thinking about the use case and utility of blockchain. My first thing outside of DeFi, because DeFi makes a lot of sense when it comes to crypto. But then after that, I was like, you know what? Tokenization of like a home deed and, having that move around in a smart contract, that tracks along with your purchases. Like, hey, the bank, sold your. So, even if they follow the practices they have now, the bank sold your deed. Okay, where'd it go? Okay, where's it on? It's on a blockchain. Can I look at it in real time? Or do I got to call some weird number, during business hours to find out who the hell owns my
Or if there's a lien on your house.
Yeah, if there's a lien. And so I just think that the transparency and the immutability of the blockchain makes so much sense when it comes to these buys, these extremely important buys like your home. I think blockchain makes so much sense for that. I don't know. What do you think, CJ, on Avalanche? We're big fans of Avalanche as far as a project, but
Yeah, I was actually an early investor in Avalanche, and I currently make markets with Avalanche. So I'm a big fan of the Avalanche ecosystem. I think it's probably one of the top ecosystems to facilitate DeFi. However, at People's Reserve, when you have a mortgage with us, we actually have this process called proof of ownership, and we put your deed on the Bitcoin blockchain. So I think what they're missing here is that Avalanche, it's a great chain. I love that it's EVM compatible, but it's not secure. Bitcoin is the most secure blockchain in the world. There is nothing comes close to Bitcoin security. You have absolute transaction finality, guaranteed. And that's why we put our proof of ownership documents on the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, in our beta, we actually had a customer who went and claimed his property. He owned his property, so he had to claim and prove ownership. We issue a proof of ownership deed. Well, he was rejected. And he got back to us. He said, guys, what is going on here? This is my home. I've lived in this home for 20 years. Turns out, at the sale of the home 20 years ago, the information was not recorded correctly. His name was not proper on the deed. We notified him of that. And this was in our beta. So before we're even live, in our beta, we're delivering this type of value through this process of making sure that these records are properly kept. As it went through the government system, as it switched 20 different hands and went through this complex, convoluted process, if he went to go sell that home, there could have been risk that that home was taken from him. If someone else realized that, they could have defrauded him. It's happened many times before. So he was super thankful that he went through the proof of ownership process, was able to have that deed secured by the Bitcoin blockchain, knowing that when the time comes in the future, and remember, blockchain records have precedent in the court of law. So you can actually use a blockchain record in the court of law and the judge will recognize it.
That's good.
You can use that to prove ownership. That's why we call it proof of ownership. It's kind of just like an added benefit of working with People's Reserve. Yeah. Make sure that the most secure network in the world, Bitcoin, is securing your proof of ownership to your real world assets. You can't trust these other third parties that are centralized and don't care about you to protect your information.
If people want more info, because we're about to end the show, if people want more info, CJ, where should they go?
Yeah, I would recommend to go to peoplesreserve.com and register for our newsletter. We're going to be going live later this summer. So we've been building for 4 years. We have a very sophisticated ecosystem. Like I said, a one-stop shop. So join the newsletter, learn about what we're doing, get in touch with us. We can help you walk through and understand what moves you have to make to be prepared for when we go live. Of course, follow us on X at People's Reserve and myself at CJ Constantinos.
Awesome, man. CJ, a lot of good and insightful and honestly just interesting stuff you share with us today. So thank you. I do want to before we end the stream, I do want to point you to I'm doing a giveaway. We just posted a new stake video. I'm going to be giving away $250 in stablecoin to one person who watches the video and comments stake. That's it. That's all I got to do. Watch the video, comment stake, and I'll pick a winner. Give you $250. How many Polygon tokens is that? It's a lot. And then catch us at the conference if you're in Vegas. We have a few of our community members watching live right now. And so if you're in town, you want to come visit us, please reach out, XDM, or send me an email, david@sincitycrypto.io. We'd love to accommodate you. If I don't get to your messages right away, I apologize. There's a lot going on, but I try to get back to everyone as soon as possible. With that being said, that's all I got. Rocco, thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you. Go watch the stake video. Chance to win $250. We love you guys. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same place. Until then.
Sin City, crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Name according to your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon, then to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.